Finally, this is the last video I'll make, Chapter 18, The Rights of Sovereigns by Institution. Um, this is a very, actually quite important part of Hobbes because it's probably the least palatable part of, in many ways, an unpalatable book. I think it's a brilliant book. I think Hobbes' Leviathan is a great, great work, but I don't think anyone likes it. Yeah, I don't think anyone likes it. It's similar to Plato's Republic in the sense that when you read it, you realize you're reading a work of genius and a work that could be created only by a genius and something that is absolutely necessary to confront. However, let's think about the kind of things that Hobbes has said, that human beings are basically like machines. And the engine of that machine is run by desire and selfishness. So that human beings living together is inherently problematic because it's a bunch of selfish beasts or selfish machines living in constant conflict. That is not a view of human nature that I think any of us would prefer, which is not to say that it's untrue. It's just not something that we would prefer, and it's certainly something we would look for alternatives to. Again, it doesn't mean it's not true, but it's not very palatable. And the political theory on which that theory of human that's built on, yes, the political theory on which that which is built on that theory of human nature is not so palatable either. We have, to some degree, a conception of liberalism in the sense that the state is a covenant. The state is the result of a covenant, a free, voluntary submission to be ruled by law that individuals make. And so far, I think that we call that liberalism. But then we get to what the Leviathan is actually like, and one thing here that the Leviathan is like that we may find unpalatable is that the rights of the Leviathan, the rights that are conferred upon him, whether he is one person or whether he is an assembly of persons, is pretty much absolute. And here in this chapter, what Hobbes is concerned with is the question about whether you can get rid of a Leviathan, whether you can get rid of a government once you've created it. And his answer seems to be, and I've not read every word of Leviathan. I think it's a sticky question, but I think the answer seems to be no. Here, he says, they that have already constituted a commonwealth, being bound by covenant to own the actions and judgments of one, cannot lawfully make a new covenant amongst themselves to be obedient to any other. That seems to be very categorically stated. That is, once you've entered into this act with other individuals to create a commonwealth, to create the Leviathan, you have put your will into his will, and you have made his will a representative of your own. So the notion that somehow you can do away with him runs into contradictions because his will is yours. So you are, in a certain way, trying to displace yourself. And that may not be logically unassailable. That is, I think there are questions there. But I think that Hobbes's other, maybe ulterior motive for saying this, that once the Leviathan has been created, it cannot be uncreated, it cannot be dissolved by the people who created it, is that the consequences are dire. That is, if it were the case that individuals were free to dissolve government at will, then we would be right back where we started. We would be devolving back into the state of nature, and that is the state of war, and that is not a state anybody wants to be in. So if we were to say that the Leviathan serves at our pleasure and we can destroy him or dissolve him or uncreate him at will, maybe Hobbes would say, well, that's never going to work. The whole point is to create a power that can instill terror in us all so that we obey the law and we respect each other's rights. if there was the possibility at every moment of just starting over, then where would the power of that Leviathan be to actually instill that terror? Remember, he uses that word terror that he thinks we actually need to feel in order to reliably obey the law. So it is maybe not, you know, maybe not the most palatable political theory, and not the one that we would want. And I don't know. But as in anything in philosophy, the idea is to see how he got here, what his premises were about human beings, about what they were like, about what life would be like without a Leviathan to instill terror, to keep us all in awe, and how that leads to the nature of the state that Hobbes thinks has to be. I mean, where's the flaw, right? That's always the game in philosophy, is that if someone makes a statement or constructs a theory that you don't like, well, then where was the mistake? Was it in the premises? Was it in the reasoning? Was it somewhere? And so yeah, I mean, it may not be palatable. It may not be something we like, but if we're going to say that Hobbes is wrong, which he probably was, in my opinion, then we have to say exactly why he's wrong or where he went wrong.